Hey guys, it's Kat here and I'm doing something big and messy today. So I am going through all the palettes, anything that can possibly be called a palette, highlighter palette, contour palette, eyeshadow quad, etc, etc. I'm going through all of them that I acquired in 2017 and giving you the briefest, might be one word, review of them after using them a lot, or letting you know how I'm going with it, or that kind of stuff. So this video idea was requested from a few people. I think I might have mentioned it as an idea, and a few people said that they wanted to see it. So on my channel this year in 2018, I'm doing two things. One is low buy, so I'm trying not to buy many products. I'm restricting myself to maximum 2 products a month, and as of towards the end of Feb, I have not purchased any makeup this year, or skincare, or perfume, or hair care, so I'm going quite good. The other thing I'm doing is a 1 month, 1 palette, so I'm focusing on 1 palette a month to get a lot of use out of it, and so I can sort of use my collection more. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I bought a lot of palettes in 2017. Alright, so like I said, this is all forms of palettes, and some of this is possibly PR, some of it is possibly gifted, the vast majority of it I did buy. So I've got a problem. Alright, so clearly I did buy a lot of stuff in 2017, but the majority of it was actually palettes. So if I look back at the purchases I made in 2017, like I've got a big makeup collection, but the biggest element of it is palettes. It's sort of like a weakness of mine. I love palettes. I also love lip products, but probably last year, I think most of my makeup purchases went towards palettes. I think I bought, if lucky, 1 or 2 foundations, only 1 concealer, or maybe 2 concealers. So this is where my makeup problem lies. All right, I'm going to start with highlighters / face contour palettes. Okay, so 2017 was the year for me that I really got into sort of coloured highlighters, and then I sort of got out of them as well. And I do have a few palettes that have coloured highlighters in them. We've got the Kat Von D Alchemist Palette. This is probably one of my favourites out of the palettes that I've got. This was actually gifted to me from a subscriber around my birthday time, so that was really sweet. I really love this palette. I think if you want a coloured highlighter palette, that one's a great one. I also picked up the Zoeva Spring Strobe Spectrum palette, which also has a similar thing. It's got coloured highlighters, similar colours to the Kat Von D, but there's a yellow instead of like a turquoisey colour. I don't love this as much. It's more of a subtle powdery highlight, which I guess is more natural, but some of the shades work well, others don't. So I don't love that. A palette that I do really love is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Aurora Glow Kit. This one, again, coloured highlighter palette, pretty much every shade except for the blue. I really enjoy. So this is probably one of my picks along with the Kat Von D one. I think these are great palettes. And yeah, I really enjoy this. Another one that I don't enjoy, we've got the Lime Crime Highlight Opals palette. This was the first highlight palette that Lime Crime released. I was expecting really great things. You get a mass amount of product. You get a pink, a kind of yellow gold, and a peach coloured highlighter, and these are just not the best. Probably the best performing one is the gold. The others are very white on the skin. They leave a white cast, and the peach, which is the one I was really excited about because I love the idea of a duochrome sort of peach highlighter. It was very powdery and barely showed up, so that one was a huge letdown. Do not recommend. I think the only non-coloured highlighter palette that I bought in 2017 was the limited edition Nicole Guerrero Glow Kit from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This was the first sort of traditional glow kit that I tried from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I've only really tried the coloured palettes like the Moonchild and the Aurora other than this, and I didn't love this. Some of the shades are really pretty. Some of them look really, really frosty on me, and they're all very, very glittery. So I know this was a palette that was in high demand. I don't reach for it, and I haven't used it for probably 6 months, which is a shame. I should actually force myself to use it more, and I might throughout the year, but there was a few shades I liked, like that peach and maybe that gold, but the rest of them were kind of frosty. Then I've only got 2 contour palettes. I don't really buy contour palettes much. I kind of prefer a single bronzer, but these were both PR that were gifted to me. So this is Pixi, and it's the Mariam Maquillage collab. This is the Strobe and Bronze Glow and Bronze palette. This is actually a really nice palette. It might be one that I might pan in the future. Some really beautiful shades, some really beautiful highlights. You've got shimmery bronzer as well as matte bronzers. And I do like that. I just haven't used it much recently. I also, I love this. This is Model's Own Sculpt and Glow, and mine's in the shade medium to tan. So it's got more of a sort of peachy, I guess, matte bronzer, a highlighter, and then a blush. I love all of the products in here. This is probably my favorite face palette, or my most used face palette that I got in 2017. Alright, so we're going to talk about big palettes because why not? I've bought a few Morphe palettes this year. There they are. So I picked up both the 25A and 25B. These were sort of like new format, and online they look very different. In person they look very, very similar. You have sort of more mattes than shimmers, which was a shame because I think their shimmer formula is better than their mattes. But yeah, if they weren't so same, I would like these a lot more. One is slightly warmer, one is slightly cooler. When I use these, I do like the looks that they create, but they're very limited because the shades are so same. So not my favorite palettes, but you can get some nice looks out of them. Then I picked up the Jaclyn Hill palette. This is one that I'm wearing a bit on my eyes. This is my February palette that I'm focusing on. So I'm quite familiar with it because I've been using it all February. I still don't love this palette. When I bought it, I think it was the second release or the second stock on the Morphe website. It cost me $30 to ship it. I think it was about $40 to buy. So in Australian dollars, it's around $100. And to me, if you take away those colors, it is just a fancy 35O palette, and I don't love it. Everyone says that the formula is different from the other ones. I don't mind the formula in this. The shade range kind of irks me, and when I talk about this in my 1 month 1 palette review, when I tell my experiences using it pretty much every day for a month, I'll give more detail, but I just feel like this palette could be condensed to a 15-pan palette because there are so many shades that just act the same on the eye, and for the price it really frustrates me. And some of the quality, like some shades work really well, other shades are very, very oily and you have to apply with your finger because it just doesn't pick up on the brush. So I don't think this is worth the money that I paid, and I'm very disappointed that I did buy it. But I have been creating some fun looks with it, or nice looks with it, this month. When I ordered that as well, just to kind of justify the ridiculous shipping, I bought the 35F palette. Now this is one that I'll probably put in my 1 month 1 palette thing maybe a bit later on. So this is a fall palette, so you can see there's a lot of shimmer. The bottom row is the matte row. There's still no like cream matte, I don't get it, but I find that there is enough variety in here, all in that sort of fall spectrum, that it's not just 50 shades of brown. It kind of is, but kind of isn't. I really like the quality in this. I actually find it better than Jaclyn Hill. Alright, the only other two big palettes that I got are both Christmas palettes. I picked up the Kat Von D Saint and Sinner eyeshadow palette. This is a very, very impressive eyeshadow palette, but I don't love it. Those are the colours there. I will once again probably use this in one of the 1 month 1 palette videos that I do. So 1 month I'll focus on this and try to use every shade and kind of see how I go. I really like some of the shades in here, but on an everyday sort of using this every day, I found it was very limiting creating sort of wearable looks that I'd be happy to wear to work. So for me, I think it missed the mark, but it is a very impressive palette and a nice collector's edition, but I don't love it. Then I was gifted this palette from a US subscriber, which was really lovely because we can't get these in Australia. And this is the Lorac Mega Pro, is it 4? Yeah, and I've got the first three, so I was very happy to get this. This is a very cool toned version, and I do want to use it a lot more. I haven't really used it recently. I've only used it a couple of times because it's so cool toned. It doesn't really suit summer, and that's what it currently is in Australia. So our holidays are around summer, so this doesn't really work for my current climate, but I do want to try this more. There are some beautiful shades in here and some unique shades, and I really like the Lorac Pro formula, but I haven't used this too much. I also think this shade selection was probably the least popular out of the 4 Mega Pro palettes because it's not wearable to as many people as the previous palettes. All right, we are getting through this at a good rate. I'm proud of myself. But these are some of my sort of medium-sized palettes. This is what brands generally bring out, so this makes up the bulk of my purchases. All right, let's talk first about Huda Beauty. I picked up the Desert Dusk palette, which I loved. If you watched my top products of 2017, this is probably my favorite palette that I mentioned. It is a beautiful palette and it creates some really, really beautiful looks. There's some really fun duochromes, there's some nice purples, there's some nice warm shades, there's some nice neutral shades, and I just found that whenever I used this, it made a really beautiful look. The quality isn't the best, and for the price tag, I do think the quality should be way better than it is, but you can create some really intricate looking, complicated looks with maybe 2 or 3 shades. Really, really simple, really, really effective. I really like this palette, and because I like this palette so much, I saw the Rose Gold palette was on sale, and I thought, okay, if I love the Desert Dusk, people rave about the Rose Gold, I really don't like this. This is probably one of my biggest disappointments of the year. It has some alright mattes, pretty basic shades. I can dupe every single one of them. And then the majority of the shimmers are really chunky, really wet, and really emphasize any small creases or fine lines around my eyes. Or on my eyelids. It just looks hideous, really hard to apply. I know some people have this as like their holy grail. I just found this to be really struggle town and not worth the money. So didn't love that. Another palette I didn't love and haven't reached for since I first tried it is the Jeffree Star Androgyny palette. I got one to destroy on the makeup breakup, and I have the repressed version. It's still sort of intact. One of them is sort of crumbling, so I don't want to lift it up too much. I think the shades are really, really beautiful, but the shade I pretty much only liked in this palette was Deja Vu, which is a beautiful sort of coppery colour, but I've got an Inglot dupe to it, so I just prefer to use the Inglot one. I think the quality is better. I also have an Inglot dupe to Military and also sort of like Poison. I've got those sort of shades in my Inglot palette, so I find those perform a lot better. I also find that these Poison and Swallow, which were the dark blue shades, they have a really black base to them, so when you do apply them or blend them out, they end up looking really smoky and black, whereas I would prefer them to look quite vibrant and blue and green. So I just don't reach for this palette. I don't like it. But that was just a leftover from the makeup breakup. Another palette that I don't love is the Matte Spectrum from Zoeva. I had high hopes for this because I really loved I think it was the Nude Spectrum, which has shimmers and mattes. This was all matte, and it was quite a colourful palette. I found this to be not very pigmented, very, very powdery, and I think some of the shades were a miss. They were quite redundant with some of the, like, you don't need 3 yellowy oranges, you only need like 1 or 2. I think these nudes weren't the best, and they should have put like really vibrant purples, really kind of bright colours in there too. This was just like a lackluster version of a rainbow palette. The one shade I really loved in this is actually this teal down the bottom. It's a beautiful shade. Shits all over the Jeffree Star one, and if I ever reach this palette, it's for that teal shade. Alright, Anastasia Beverly Hills, they got me with the Modern Renaissance in 2016, so I tried the Subculture and the Prism palette in 2017. Subculture palette, I love the shades in it. I think the shades are so fun and so different. When this came out, which I think was mid-year, I think, this was very, very unique, but now there's a lot of brands that are bringing out shades like these. and there was problems with the formula. And this is a very, very powdery palette. You can make it work if you pick up the smallest amount, but shades sort of work together funny. They kind of go grey or brown instead of showing their true colour. I just had an issue with it, and I find that even though I might reach for some cool colours, like, once again, like the kind of turquoise up in the corner, or even like the dark purple down here, or that sort of burgundy colour, you have to be very careful with them, and I pretty much only reach for them when I really want those shades, which is hardly ever, and when I have enough time to do my makeup that if I fuck it up and it falls out all over my face, I can fix it, which is not on a daily basis. Also, Cube and Electric seal up, so the pan seal, and it makes it really impossible to pick up with a brush. So there's just formula issues with this, which was a real shame because I was a real supporter of that colour scheme. Then they brought out the Prism palette for Christmas. It was one of my few Christmas purchases I made. And this also has sort of a similar colour theme where it's got some yellows and some blues and some vibrant sort of peacock greens. But the formula of this was a lot better. It wasn't as good as the Modern Renaissance, which is really, really good, probably like the highest standard that you can get with the Anastasia palettes. But I thought this was a fun palette. Not an everyday palette, but you can create some really fun looks, and this is more of a going out palette for me. Alright, bought some Urban Decay palettes in 2017. I think one of these, maybe this guy, I bought in 2016. I'm not too sure. So we've got the Moondust palette, which I was really excited for because it's their Moondust eyeshadows, their singles are really, really beautiful, and these do perform quite well if you have a decent glitter glue. The colours didn't inspire me too much to use it on a daily basis. If these had like beautiful coppers or beautiful golds or beautiful, I don't know, taupes or something, I would probably happily reach for this on a daily basis. I'm not scared of glitter every day, but I am scared of blue glitter or green glitter every day. So I think the colours in this kind of let it down. If it was more a nude with little pops of fun colour, it'd be better, but this is very cool toned, and struggle to use it. Another palette that I haven't picked up in a very long time is the After Dark palette. I really like the colours in this, and I really like the formula of Urban Decay's metallics. The shame of it is that the two of these shades are in the permanent range and they swatch way better than the palette does. So Lounge, for example, if you've got Lounge in a single, it is probably 10 times more impressive than in the palette. So I was a little bit disappointed in how these behave and how they work, but the colours are really nice. And I probably should use this more. I might put this once again, try this 1 month one palette possibly. And then also the Naked Heat, which is probably my favourite out of the three. This is a very same palette. There are so many shades that are very similar, but every time I use this, I create some beautiful looks. So even though these, you don't need 3 of those colours, you don't need 3 shimmers that all look similar on the eye, you don't need 3 deep mattes that all look similar on the eye. I would have loved to have seen some more versatility in this. It's a nice performing palette, so I do like that. Alright, some other ones just quickly. I was gifted Pixi It's Judy Time palette. This is a very, very basic palette. Nothing crazy in it. There's some nice champagne colours, gold, soft sort of pinky nudes, some coppery bronzes, dark browns, some shades I don't love in here, like a black with a silver glitter, but create some really nice looks. It's one of those sort of going to work, don't want much fuss, easy to use eyeshadow palette, so I do like that one. Alright, 2 sort of thin palettes. I picked up a Zoeva Caramel Melange palette. We're actually going to destroy this in the makeup breakup, but we never got around to doing it, so I just started using it. So this is a really, really warm toned eyeshadow palette. I haven't used it too much. So it's got a beautiful shimmery copper, it's got some nice mattes, it's got a really fun sort of bright orange in there. I would love to see sort of those colours in the Naked Heat. So I haven't used this in too many looks, but I definitely want to get more use out of it in 2018 because it is a fun palette. Yeah, maybe I should use it soon. All right, towards the end of 2017, I went to a PR event and I picked up this Nude Beach by the Balm. I haven't used the Balm palette a new one for quite a few years. I used to buy a lot, like pretty much whenever one was released, I would check it out. This is this one here. So you have some nice soft shades, some mid-tones, some sort of cool tone, warm tone, deep shades. These perform really well. Once again, I haven't had a chance to use them too much because when I got it, it was around Christmas and the craziness of holiday time. But it's one palette that I want to use more 2018. All right, then on to smaller palettes. So let's talk about the little guys. I'm going to talk about this guy first because this was a lifesaver to me. This is the Tartist Pro To Go. So it is a little palette with a little mirror, 6 shades, 3 of them matte, sort of one, sort of, I don't know, off cream, dark cream, dark brown, burnt orange, and then you have a gold, a shimmery bronzy brown, and a burgundy red sort of color. And I loved this. I took it traveling with me for a few weeks and I used it to death. And whenever I go away, this is the one that's coming with me. So this was probably one of my favorite purchases I made in 2017. I forgot to mention this in my 2017 favorites, but I really should have, because the only reason I don't use it in everyday use is because I don't want to use it up for the next time I travel, because it's my favorite travel palette. A palette that I was gifted and I was a bit surprised that I actually really enjoy is by Bobbi Brown. This is the Downtown Cool eyeshadow palette. It is not an eyeshadow palette that I would normally buy for myself or that I thought I would enjoy, but it is a variety of matte greys and browns and kind of khaki greens. So I definitely am going to be using this more in the cooler months when I want a more smoky eye, but I've made some really beautiful all matte looks using this. Pretty much sort of like that all over the lid, that sort of blended out, and one of the dark shades, probably the brown, on the lash line. It's really, really beautiful. It's a little bit patchy and it looks really scary, but if you've got a collection of a lot of shimmers and a lot of brights and a lot of stuff like that, this is a really nice way to kind of tone it down, and I use it a lot more than I expected to. So that was a big surprise for me. I picked up a couple of palettes from Colourpop. I also picked up the Kathleen Lights one, but that was this year, so I'm not talking about it. This is the Karrueche K She palette, the Femme Rosa She palette. Femme Rosa was a collection, She was the palette, and this has some nice sort of blushy romantic colours. Some of the shades in here are quite nice, some of them just don't work amazingly well for me, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I've got flakes of Subculture all over my shorts. Thanks, Subculture. Another palette that I picked up was the My Little Pony palette. This collection I mainly bought a couple of things from because it's very nostalgic to me. I have a few lip products as well, but I picked up this eyeshadow palette because it's gorgeous and it just reminds me of my youth. I haven't used this much. It's virtually untouched, and I never reviewed it because it was more of a collector palette for me, something that I wanted in my collection. Today I am actually wearing some of the shades. I'm wearing sort of this row here on my eyes, as well as the dark purple shade from the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette. So yeah, I've kind of mixed it with that middle row. So it's a bit of a fun palette. It performs quite well. Not amazing, but the shades are pretty fun. You get some nice sort of duochrome shades in there as well that, yeah, they're just wearable but fun colours. So the next one is a palette I haven't used too much. I do want to try more throughout this year. This is a Burgundy Bar from Maybelline. I just got this at a PR event, and I have used this a few times, and I think it performs a lot better than some of their past palettes, but I haven't used every shade. So I might have to, you know, test that out a bit more. Then I've got some palettes that I was gifted around Christmas time that are little baby palettes. I've got a few more that I haven't used because around Christmas, when we were sent a few presents from subscribers to Beauty News, some of them are in a drawer, and when I want to reach for like new makeup to play with, I've sort of got them in that drawer. So these are the ones that I have played with. We've got the Wet n Wild. This is a Comfort Zone palette, so this is a very well-known palette. I think they've reformulated it since, but it's got some beautiful shades. Oops. And I have used that shade, not a lot, but in a few looks because it's a beautiful blue-brown kind of shade. no mattes in here. So this is more for me as in like an accent palette. Then a couple of subscribers sent through a couple of the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Contour Quads. So I've got the plum one, which is really beautiful. Once again, this is more of, it's kind of would go with the look that I'm wearing today on my eyes. This is something I'd reach for kind of in winter a lot more, so to kind of bring in those cooler tones. It's very pretty. And then also the Rust one, which I have used a bit, and it's got some staple, a nice sort of, I don't know, nude shade, dark brown, rusty red, and a sort of yellowy cream. And these are really nice quality. They're a little bit powdery, but yeah, they're nice little palettes, and they're nice to accompany with something like this that doesn't really have many mattes. All right, there's one other palette that I want to mention, and this was gifted at Christmas time as well, and this is like, this made Haley cry. This was such like a surprise. It's such a beautiful like product, and I have to be completely honest and say I have not used it yet, because it's one of those things where you're like, it's so pretty, I don't want to touch it. I will eventually use it, but it is this guy here. So it is by Besame, and it is the Snow White 1939 Storybook palette. So I do want to give it some love because I was gifted this in 2017, but for me it is like the ultimate collector's sort of palette, so I've been sort of really cautious with it. I will definitely use it, but let's have a look at it. It's beautiful. So it's this beautiful storybook. It's made of cardboard, but it's really, really beautiful. So it says Snow White and the Seven Dwarves on it. It's so nice. And then I still haven't even peeled off the plastic from the mirror. That's how much I'm like, oh my God, I'm too scared to touch it. So it's got a face chart talking about the original colors, like the exact inks that were used in the movie. So it's crazy. And then you open it up, it's got some like background information, a beautiful ribbon. And then the shades that mimic the inks that were used in the movie. So it is gorgeous. All of these are kind of, they mimic inks that were used for the clothing or the skin coloring. So for example, Pastel 10, which is that first one, it says that it is the color that's used for the flesh of the characters. So Saddle 104 was used for the eyelids. Things like the skirt was Pastel 6, which is the yellow. So it's a crazy palette. It's so beautiful. It's so well done, and it's just one of those palettes that I'm too scared to even delve into, because it is, for me, it's like part of history as well as makeup history, film history and makeup history, and it's just, I don't know, it's spectacular. All right, so that was a bit of a journey. Those are the palettes that I got in 2017. Vast majority of them I purchased myself. Some were gifted from subscribers, some were gifted from PR, but you can tell I'm a bit of a palette junkie, and I'm trying to pull that back a lot in 2018. I did sort of try to counterbalance this craziness by not buying much other makeup throughout 2017, so you know, base products and stuff, I was just using what I had, used up a lot of products, but yeah, palettes were my weakness, clearly. So if you enjoyed that, give it a thumbs up. I know it's quite excessive, soz, but also if you do want to see any of these particular palettes used in my 1 month 1 palette series, where I focus on one palette for a whole entire month and then let you know how I went using that palette, let me know which one you want me to feature. I have a rough sort of schedule throughout the year, so they can kind of correspond with seasons, but if there's anything particular you want to see, I'll try to work that in. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.